OST, round 5, me against Trade. Strap in your seatbelts, get a nice cup of tea or something, get settled in. It's kind of a lengthy one. And as well as that, a very important thing to know is that when I saw my matchup against Trade, I saw that on Smogon, their profile picture is a cat girl. And firstly, I thought, I don't want to lose to someone whose profile is a cat girl. And secondly, I thought, incredible, I can put a cat girl in the thumbnail. With that, we're going to get into this first game, which we've both got double regenerator cores as the kind of backbone of balance type builds. And in terms of matchups, Trade's Weavile is, over a longer game, going to be very threatening because while Melmetal and Urshifu can kind of switch into it, neither of them recover at all. They'll get worn down. Weavile beats both of my Regenerator Core Mons, and Trade could very easily play into a late game Weavile Sword Stance sweep. Whereas on my side, Zeraora matches up really nicely in that Scizor does switch into it, but it doesn't hugely threaten it back. If the rest of the team is sufficiently weakened, I can bulk up on it, and Zeraora is just going to be really nice if I can get rid of the Landorus. But the Toxapex is also going to be really awkward because this team, I've used it a bunch of times now, it doesn't really one-shot Toxapex in any kind of way. You have to more gradually wear it down, and while I'm trying to do that, the Pex is going to prove very annoying as I just sort out the music and then go on to the wrong game. And now I'm on the right game. So with that, we'll get into it. It's going to be me trying not to lose to Weavile and them trying not to lose to Zeraora. So they lead Zapdos as I lead Landorus. And I'm just thinking, okay, cool, I can Toxic this. Melmetal's going to really appreciate that, although Melmetal's not great when there's a Pex as well. But they reveal the substitute, which is scary. And that's going to just force me out because there's no point you turning into it and taking a hit or a Toxic unnecessarily. So I just go Slowking because you're not going to Thunderbolt into a Landorus. So I can just dodge the Hurricane, live any electric attack, teleport out, and get safely into whoever I want to go into. And we see exactly that happen as Thunderbolt does half, don't care, going to regen it off, and I can get in Zeraora. And I Plasma Fist there just because you've got the sub, you might as well Hurricane for some damage. It does miss, but I don't think that's that important because I'm a leftover Zeraora, so I'd be healing it off. And now that the substitute is gone, knockoff becomes the freest thing in the world as the obvious Landorus comes in, and I take its leftovers. And I'm thinking, cool, it's turn 5, the Landorus already isn't recovering. If I can get rocks up, if I can Toxic this, I can play into this Zeraora endgame. And so I'm just going to go into Tornadus on their Stealth Rock, and then I'm going to get rid of it with a Defog, get Toxic, which is whatever. But what that does mean is that I can U-turn around really freely because I don't have to worry about getting staticked by the Zapdos, which is kind of nice. So in comes the Toxapex as I miss a Hurricane, which is whatever. And then I'm going to just take its item because I might as well. And getting the eject button is really nice because they could just use that to grab momentum and put me in a really scary position because things like my Urshifu, it wants to U-turn into the Toxapex as they switch and give me the initiative, but they could go Pex, eject out into something like Zapdos, or on a Tornadus U-turn, they could have ejected into Weavile. That could have been hairy, so it was good to get rid of that as they just try and catch the U-turn with a Toxic. But now I'm going to U-turn. And I know another Toxic is coming, but, well, first a knockoff, but then a Toxic. But there's not a huge amount I can really do about that as I go Slowking. But the cool thing about Slowking is that on a Toxapex, I can just always get momentum because it can't really touch me. I can teleport out, and I do have to give up my boots and I have to get Toxicked. to allow for that, but now that I've got that, cool. I can just do this forever. I can teleport out after throwing up a future sight. As they go Slowking, and I, on their Slowking Galar even, teleport back out into Tornadus. And this is cool because just I can knock off to take an item, and they're going to have to give me an item on something if they don't want their Toxapex to take that future sight. So because they can't afford to take the future sight on the Pex, they give me the Assault Vest on the Slowking. I get crit, which is pretty nice. And now I'm able to just U-turn out, I believe, very freely. And I just go back into Zapdos. I go back into Zeraora on the Zapdos, and because that kind of is going to force the Landorus, well, I thought it would force the Landorus, so I went my Landorus, but they went into Pex, which I think what that is just expecting that the Landorus is so obvious that I probably don't Plasma Fist. I can just knock off because that still gets me value if they stay in on the Zapdos. So you can just go into Toxapex, absorb the knockoff, and then you're still going to live a Plasma Fist and be able to knock me back or Toxic me or something. And worst case, if I do Plasma Fist, it does like 60 odd, whatever, then they can just go Landorus and they're regenning it off really quickly. So the Toxapex is a really solid play there. But I'm going to just U-turn out because I don't kill it, and there's no reason to let my Landorus get Toxic this early. And here we just see again that I can always go Slowking on the Pex and teleport out, and it's just really useful and helpful to me. They're going to go into their Scizor, which I don't really have an amazing answer to, in that if it's a Swords Dance Scizor, then I don't want to go Landorus, because I'll just get set up on and maybe knocked off, and I'm not doing huge damage back. And on a more defensive one, it's going to just annoy me and knock me off and do whatever it wants to do. So I decided to go Melmetal, thinking that if you want a Swords Dance, I can Iron Defense up alongside you, which is cool. Though at the same time, with the Zapdos and the Toxapex, I know that I'm not really going to get immense value out of this Melmetal, so I'm just thinking, okay, at least you can come in on Scizor, you can do something. And here, I stupidly bash into the Scizor and take a lot of Rocky Helmet damage. It was a very optimistic double Iron Bash, just kind of thinking, okay, well, if you want to try and break my sub, then I get big damage on you, and Zeraora is vibing, but Trade is smarter than that. And so I'm punished for my blind optimism, really. But on the bright side, they can't break my sub. I'm able to just keep staying in and just recover a bunch of health. As I start Iron Defensing up, just thinking, there's no real reason for me to hide this, because they're not going to just sack their Pex for no reason when I have an Urshifu. It's probably not going to be Melmetal's game. And they get their rocks, and I just keep staying in and restoring health, just thinking, okay, well, the more health I get back, the more you can switch into Weavile, without having to give up the choice band on the Urshifu, which is nice. And as they go Pex, I just body press into it, thinking like, well, whatever you go into, I get some degree of damage. At the very least, I can waste a couple of recovers, something like that. And I'm still just healing up because the Pex isn't going to break my substitute. They then go into Zapdos, and I'm not sure why they do this, as they take 60, which is really nice partly for Urshifu, because that way I don't have to risk getting staticked on a lot of hits of a Surging Strike to kill it. It's not switching into Tornadus all the time anymore. Zapdos is just an annoying mon that I'd like to get rid of. So the damage is really good. I'm not sure why they went Zapdos. It might have been scouting out for... No, I'd used all the moves, so it's not scouting Earthquake. I don't know why they did that, but I get loads of damage, so that's cool. And then I'm very free to just body press again, as they don't just throw out their Zapdos unnecessarily. I Iron Defense again, which is another very optimistic... I mean, I guess you might not have Haze, but it is a competent Pex in the hands of a competent player. Of course it has Haze. But equally, 30% that they're going to just recover, regen off. Not the end of the world, but from all that, I'm back up to 86%, which is cool. And now I'm going to just go Slowking so that I can get the momentum back with another teleport. There goes Zapdos, and I just teleport out into the Tornadus. And this is because I believe U-turn does like 4 or 5%, so I don't kill yet. But if you want to go into Toxapex to absorb the knockoff, then I just repeat U-turn into Slowking, teleport out. I can do that forever. And though in this case, just knowing that they're not going to throw out the Zapdos, I feel pretty confident that they're not going to just roost on me as I defog away the rocks. And now I'm free to just U-turn, get into Slowking, and teleport / future sight / whatever I like. What does kind of disrupt this way of dealing with Pex is if it's carrying toxic spikes, which is just a bit awkward and unpleasant. As I just go Lando, U-turn out, get Slowking back in, essentially just to mix things up a bit and see if they wanted to do anything weird or different or erratic from my not going back into Torn. But now I'm back in. Now I can teleport again. And now I can go back into Landorus to get my rocks up. So I go into there, Landorus, and I just go for my rocks, which is cool. And then we trade Toxics, which, as I've said many times before, when there's a Zeraora on my team, it is not even a question. Do you want to trade Toxics with Landoruses? It's always yes. And so now that this Landorus will be coming into rocks and around a Toxic, I can really begin wearing it down for Zeraora to win in the late game. They get their rocks, as I just U-turn out, and I'm going to bring in a Shifu, which is pretty much going to just force the Pex. And knowing that, I U-turn. One thing I did think here was that you could just sack the Zapdos to try and fish for a paralysis, but in this case they just make the more safe and sensible Pex play. So that's going to be Slowking back in once again. Get knocked. Future sight this time. Get knocked again. Get crit. And I kind of have to slack off because I've got to keep this thing healthy to keep coming in on Pex. So they just keep spamming knock. And this time I teleport out. And I bring in Zeraora on the future sight hit, which they do live, but it leaves them very low. And this time I'm able to just raw Plasma Fist because I'm thinking that even if the Landorus comes in, it's already had its item knocked. It's going to take the rocks and the Toxic. I'm cool with that. And by Plasma Fisting, I just get more damage on the Scizor. And I am going to take the Helmet chip, but at this point, I feel pretty confident that I can just knock off the Helmet because you have to roost, because you need to keep this healthy as a Zeraora answer, especially when the Landorus is getting increasingly weakened. And by knocking off the Helmet, this is just going to make it easier for Zeraora next time I want to bring it in and try and force progress. Because without that Rocky Helmet damage, the Scizor is going to be struggling to really do a whole lot of damage to me. So the Scizor, I'm able to bring in Urshifu on it and just get a shitload of damage on the U-turn. And the reason that I'm able to Surging Strike there is because the Toxapex was low enough by now that 2 Surging Strikes would have killed it, so it couldn't switch in. And so now we have a very weakened Scizor, which Zeraora is going to love. They're able to bring in Zapdos, which is obviously going to scare me out. And so I go Zeraora on the Roost, but this is still fine in that Zapdos isn't really threatening a Zeraora, and I'm able to start getting leftovers up, negating the Stealth Rocks, which is pretty vibey. I take its heavy-duty boots as I get Hurricaned, and with the crit, I would have just killed it if I'd Plasma Fisted, but I wasn't expecting a crit, so I just thought, well, I'm going to be pressuring you more long-term if I take your boots. That's pretty cool. But I am going to get confused by the Hurricane, which is unfortunate, because if I'm to try and attack, hit myself, and then get Hurricaned, I die, and I don't want to just throw out my Wing Con for no reason. So now I've got this very weakened Zeraora not even able to get a kill without taking what I deemed as an unacceptable risk. So that kind of sucks, and I need to figure out how I get the Zeraora healthy again in order to be able to have the HP to bulk up and win late game. I just go Tornadus, knowing that you never Thunderbolt into a Volt Absorb Mon, and now I'm just free to U-turn and kill the Zapdos. And I think their Pex, it's still very weak, so you don't want to just let me U-turn back into Zeraora. So in this case, they just let the Zapdos go down. I U-turn out and I go into a Shifu, which is mostly because I want to keep out the Weavile, because if the Weavile gets in, it's forcing progress, it's taking my Choice Band, it's taking the leftovers on Melmetal, it is just being unpleasant to me. Whereas the things like Pex that want to come in on a Shifu, they can recover up, they can get healthy, but they also don't really threaten me, and they're not going to be able to immediately force progress. So I just kind of decide to let the Pex heal up in exchange for denying the Weavile the opportunity to fuck me up. U-turn out again, whatever, Slowking comes back in, you know the drill by now. Recover back up again, and this time they're going to go hard Weavile, hoping to catch a Future Sight or a Slack Off, which they do. And I just go Melmetal because at this point I know I have to give up something to a knockoff, and of the things to give up, Melmetal feels like the one when there is a Haze Pex that can just sit in there on me forever. And while it can't break my sub because knockoff does pathetic damage, it can just PP stall me because it has a shit ton of hazes. I have considerably fewer of all of my moves. So there go the leftovers. Toxapex is going to come in, and Toxapex was obviously coming in, so I'm able to make the Slowking play. Weavile is going to come back in hard as I go for the Future Sight, and I believe the reason I did this was because if they go Weavile, I can go into something like Melmetal or Shifu, and then their attack plus Future Sight is going to force out the Weavile and threaten whatever wants to come in. So I just go Melmetal again because I still want to keep the Choice Band on the Urshifu if I can, just to break through the Slowking and the Scizor as best I can. And at this point, they just sack the Slowking to the Double Iron Bash because there was nothing on the team that wanted to take a Double Iron Bash plus a Future Sight. And the Slowking was clearly the least useful in that it's lost its Assault Vest. Urshifu beats it, Landorus beats it, Melmetal beats it, Zeraora beats it. All it really does is come in on Slowking, but then my Slowking just teleports out anyway. So it makes sense to sack, and that puts me at 6-4 up, which you'd immediately think very advantageous position. But it's not as good as it looks because of my mons. Melmetal is weak, it's lost its leftovers, Zeraora is low, Landorus is toxic, Slowking is toxic, Tornadus is low, and Urshifu has been chunked. So I'm really dangerously close to just losing to Weavile if I can get up a Swords Dance, which is a little bit dicey, but the Scizor's going to come in, and as I go Tornadus, it's able to roost itself up, and at this point, I absorb a Bullet Punch, and I defog, because I'm just thinking, I need to get Zeraora healthy as fast as possible. I can't do that if it's taking Stealth Rock every turn, and if the Landorus wants to get Stealth Rocks back up, it has to take more rounds of Toxic, which is also going to bring me closer to winning with Zeraora. So I get rid of that, but now I can't take another Bullet Punch, so I have to switch, and they know that and U-turn, and I did figure you're probably U-turning, but I also felt as if, what can I really do about that? Like, I don't gain that much from just staying in with the Tornadus, because if I Hurricane, I just die to the U-turn anyway, and if I U-turn out, I get what, like 2% on the Scizor? Not worth risking my Tornadus over. So in comes Landorus again, and at this point, I figured that you're probably just going for Suicide Rocks, so I just bash into it, get a shit ton of damage. Zeraora is going to love this, and I also felt like I can just bash into it because of things that can happen. You either stay in and probably Rocks, because when I have a Landorus and a Tornadus, Earthquaking feels weird, or you go out into Pex, which is just going to let Slowking in, and I'm cool with that. This time, I decided that you're either Earthquaking or U-turning. Either way, I can go Tornadus and get a good amount of regen back if you Earthquake, or a bit less if you U-turn, but still some, because I know that I need to get this Tornadus back up to healthy to come in on the Scizor and the Landorus. And as Scizor comes back in, it's another just, I have to go into Melmetal because it's the most expendable thing. And they can bullet punch into me really freely without killing momentum, just because the U-turn afterwards is so free that I can't make any kind of double or capitalize on having Melmetal in any kind of way, so I just ineffectually body press into the pecs because there's not really anything better I can do. I do it again here, and the reason that I keep body pressing here is A, because I know that you've only got knockoff, you can barely touch me, and B, because I really don't want you to go Weavile on the Slowking switch. And so I'm just body pressing a couple of times to kind of go, don't get any funny ideas, don't go into Weavile on the Slowking, and once I feel like I've done that conditioning enough, then I go Slowking, ready to future sight / teleport out. So I teleport, I get in the Landorus on the Scizor, and this is just because I'm thinking, okay, well, if I can get my rocks up, then the Landorus is going to die on the switch. And I'm hoping that I can get into a position where I force the Landorus sack. Then once I've done that, I'm hoping to defog, so that then I can start getting health back on the Zeraora. So I just Earthquake into the Scizor, which I think I probably shouldn't have done, because I just take more Toxic and they roost up. But the thought process was that if you try and catch the Melmetal and you turn out, then I get you really low and Zeraora is even more vibing than it already is. But I still don't think it was a play in retrospect. So now I just U-turn out, and now I go Melmetal. And as they U-turn, I do actually live, which is kind of cool. Well done, Melmetal. But even then, they just go Weavile. I don't really have a choice but to let it go down. But this does let me bring in the Urshifu and lets me U-turn straight out. And so now we kind of see again this, I go Slowking on the Toxapex, I can teleport out forever. The problem though is that if they want to go Weavile as I teleport out, going Urshifu is cool, it gives me momentum, but I'm taking the rocks every time and I'm not healing that off. And what I maybe didn't consider enough at this point is that the Urshifu is going to need to live a +2 Weavile attack, most likely. So it does actually suit trade just fine for me to keep teleporting into Urshifu, but while the Pex is in, this is cool. I can just U-turn teleport around, get Tornadus healthy again, so at least I got that going for me. And we just start hitting this kind of a little bit of a stalemate for a bit, but now they're going to Weavile on the teleport, so we go back to Urshifu, take more rocks, get closer to dying to +2 Weavile. U-turn out again, and at this point, I'm starting to kind of go, okay, what can I do to break out of this cycle of just my Urshifu getting lower and lower and no progress being made? I figured I can go Landorus, I can Earthquake, I can get a fat amount of damage on the Pex, and then I can start trying to just break through with Zeraora. And knowing that, they're going to just sack their Landorus because the Scizor didn't live rocks +2 Earthquakes. And this does mean that if I can get Landorus in on the Pex / Scizor, then I can defog away the rocks. I think I died to Bullet Punch at that point, or it might have been a roll, so I didn't want it there. In fact, no, I didn't, because I'm defog on the Tornadus. My brain's a bit fried. But anyway, I'm able to U-turn into the Tornadus, defog, and now Zeraora is going to be able to start getting healthy. So here, I'm going to U-turn out into the Landorus to try and get my rocks back up. Because, especially considering that I don't... Okay, sorry, I got a little confused. I'm saying that I want rocks because, especially when Zeraora isn't killing the Pex, I need to get that thing chipped. I need Scizor to get chipped. Zeraora isn't killing either of them. It needs to break through. It needs the rocks to help chip. But in the meantime, I go into Landorus for the Intimidate, U-turn out, and because they bullet punched, I get the slow U-turn, and that's going to give me this round of leftovers. And the only reason I made the switch was to get those leftovers. So now I'm able to go Urshifu on the U-turn. In comes the Pex, and I'm able to go Slowking, and here I'm going to, again, teleport out because I just need every increment of leftovers on the Zeraora. Although we saw again, as I went Urshifu on the Scizor, so I could U-turn out on the Pex into the Slowking to teleport into the Zeraora to get the health. The problem is that by giving up that 11% on Urshifu to the Scizor U-turn, I'm in Weavile range, which is very rough. But at this point, I decided, okay, I've got enough health up that I can just start trying to win here. So I bulk up, take the U-turn quite nicely in the process, but in doing so, I get Toxics by the Pex because I can't kill it, and now I just Plasma Fist a lot of times. They switch out to let the Pex get the regen, which is so that they don't immediately lose to Urshifu, which is very fair. And so I'm able to kill the Scizor, but the problem is that now I'm in Ice Shard range, and I die. So I go Urshifu, and the kind of problem that we're beginning to reach is that, yeah, I'm at a 4-2 advantage, but also I let Urshifu get weakened. If the Weavile gets a Swords Dance, which it can do on Slowking if you don't get burnt, Tornadus, and Landorus doesn't have a way of killing it in one hit. If the Weavile's able to do that, then it is probably going to win. So I close combat here because the Pex is weak enough that 2 is going to kill it. But in retrospect, this was a throw. And the reason for that is because Surging Strikes, I believe 2 would have still killed the Pex from how comfortably the close combat is 2-hit KOing here. And it also would one-shot Weavile. But the problem with close combating twice here, and I didn't really think too hard, I just thought click powerful move, get kill, cool. The problem is that now I'm at -2 defense, and I'm going to die to the Weavile. And so, because of me making a stupid mistake there by not surging, the game comes down to a 50-50. In that, if I stay in, I get outspared, I die, and then Weavile just kills all of my remaining mons. Whereas, if I switch, then if they attack into me, then they lose because I'm able to just sack something and go Urshifu and kill. But the problem is if I switch and they call that in Swords Dance, then they're probably going to win. So it pretty much is just a 50-50. And I really wanted to stay in and pull the trigger. But the reason that I don't is because I was thinking, okay, well, if I try and pull the trigger and it doesn't work, and they kill the Urshifu, then I just lose. Whereas there's still some level of chance if I do switch out and get it wrong. So we'll see what I mean by that. I go Landorus here, get the Intimidate, it's only at +1, and this is cool because I can die, and then I can go back into Urshifu and hopefully win the game. So I got that going for me. But I make another mistake here by going Slowking. And the reason that's a mistake, as they Ice Shard, what I was thinking was just, okay, well, you're gonna just knock off because there's no reason not to. It guarantees a kill. So I sack the Slowking. Then I go back into Landorus, and then either you kill me and you're at neutral and I win with Urshifu, or you Swords Dance, I U-turn for a lot of damage, I get enough damage that Urshifu Aqua Jet is going to kill. It just didn't occur to me, for whatever reason, that there was another option of not killing me on the Switch. And so now we have this very bad situation of Slowking being in. And so at this point, I can keep trying to intimidate with Landorus, but that's going to be too little too late. So I end up just going, okay, well, I can still burn you with a Scald. As they Swords Dance up again, Scald does not get the burn. So I just sack the Lando to get the Intimidate. And at this point, Banded Aqua Jet to kill is a roll, but it is a roll that is strongly in Trade's favor. And then, as well as that, Triple Axle, it can miss any of the Axles, and they do need to triple Axle to kill me. So I go for the Aquajet, I don't get the roll, they live on 4, triple Axle is gonna land all the hits and kill me. And in retrospect, as I just go into the rest of my lads and they die, in retrospect, I think I should have just close combated there, because the chance of a triple Axle miss was greater than the chance of me getting the roll. And if I Aquajetted and then they missed the triple Axle, then Ice Shard would have been able to finish me off. So Trade takes the first game, and I think I bungled that end game a bit, but equally at the same time, Trade played well, played to their win con, did what they needed to do to win. So on 4%, the Weavile survives through it all and slaughters my entire team, which is going to take us onto the second game. So for game 2, I bring the same sub-SD Landorus Specs plus Cephalon team that I use quite a lot, and Trade brings Rain. And this team does match up reasonably into Rain, in that Spadef Clefable is a decent Zapdos answer. I have eject button Pex, which can take advantage of Barraskewda and Urshifu. And Katana is really nice against Rain once you get the Zapdos weakens. But at the same time, I'm a Spadef Pex, which against Barraskewda and Urshifu in the Rain is not going to be as consistent. And Corviknight just crumbles, and then the rest of my team could quite quickly follow. So to get into it, they lead Swampert as I lead Clefable. I'm just thinking, I want rocks. I want to be hitting Pelipper. If I can get Zapdos knocked, then I need that to be taking rocks damage. Barraskewda can get worn down by rocks, plus Corviknight's Rocky Helmet if it wants to flip turn around. I think that's what I need to do. So turn 1, we just exchange rocks. And then turn 2, because I know they can just flip turn out. Well, I know you can flip turn or Earthquake, so I go Corviknight, and the rationale for that is that Blacephalon, offensively, there are no Shadow Ball switch-ins once the probably Spadef Swampert is weakened enough. So I'm thinking, if you want to flip turn out and take the Rocky Helmet damage, then I would love that. That would be great. So I go Corviknight, dodge the Earthquake, and I body press into it as it flip turns out. And I was thinking that you might not want to go Zapdos on a U-turn, which would let me just get Blacephalon in and fire off a massive hit, or get Landorus in and start smacking down or Earthquaking things, or whatever I want to do. So already the Swampert is down to 61, so Blacephalon is loving that, as Pelipper is just going to come in. And so I go into my eject Pex, but they double into Swampert, catching that, which is a good play because a Corviknight isn't standing up to something like a Specs Pelipper Weather Ball, so I shouldn't be keeping it in and risking it. And the Swampert is just able to come in, really. And at that point, what it does at least let me do is go Corviknight again, because it's still Earthquaking or flip turning, and I get even more damage on the Swampert. Although I think from Trade's perspective, as much as I'm wearing down the Swampert, they're wearing down the Corviknight. And Barraskewda and Urshifu are going to really enjoy attacking into a weakened Corviknight in the Rain, and they can just kind of smack straight through us for Death Pex, really. But in this case, the Zapdos is going to come out as I go Clefable. And I think the reason for Zapdos over Barraskewda / Urshifu is that you don't necessarily know that I'm a Spadef Pex that's weaker to them, and a Spadef Clefable, which is stronger against Zapdos, because a lot of Clefables are Fizz-Def at the moment. But as is, I'm able to get Clefable in. And at this point, they Hurricane, and I just softball because I feel as if I can't really dick about with Moonblast, because I know that I need this thing healthy, because otherwise Zapdos just tears apart my entire team. Now they're going to Volt Switch out, but at this point, I'm able to Thunder Wave and catch that, because I thought, you don't want to just waste all your rain turns attacking into me for no good reason. I can get special attack drops with the Moonblast. You're going to want to switch. And all things you switch into, Barraskewda and Urshifu, no. Swampert can come in, but you don't want to be taking another Moonblast when you're already this low, so only Ferrothorn really makes sense. So I just thought, let's get it paralyzed at the very least. That's cool. And so I'm able to get out of there with a reasonably healthy Clefable that can still live 2 hits off the Zapdos. They double into Zapdos on my Corviknight, good play. And then they keep up the pressure with a Volt Switch. Shifu's going to come in, and that is going to scare my Clefable straight out. So time for Pex. And I'm able to eject out into the Katana. And I see from the U-turn damage that it's probably a Choice Scarf for Shifu. And so I feel relatively confident that I'm pretty obviously a Scarf Cart, so I should be scaring you out. So I decide that I'm going to double Blacephalon, which is thinking that if you go Zapdos or Ferrothorn, either way, I'm threatening to kill you. But they U-turn, and it ends up working out really well for them. But I'm not sure what that was expecting, because I think it might, because words, if you're expecting a non-Choice Scarf Katana, then you can just close combat and kill me. And I was feeling as if, well, I've just got my momentum out this eject button. I don't want to just throw that away by Leaf Blading into a Ferrothorn. So I need to make the switch. And obviously, again, if you're expecting the Blacephalon, then just Surging Strike and kill it. But at the same time, U-turn, if you're really confident that I'm either not a Scarf Katana or I'm not Leaf Blading, it does kind of work as a mid-ground in that whatever I end up doing, you're kind of fine. Point being, I'm confused as fuck by it, but it does work out. So the Swampert is going to come in, and at this point I'm thinking, okay, this just isn't going my way. I'm on the back foot. If I lose this game, I'm out. I think I need to start taking risks. So a Spadef Swampert, the damage calc for a Choice Specs Blacephalon Shadow Ball to kill, at this range, it's about 56% in my favor. And so I just kind of go, okay, fuck it, let's just go for that. And I go for it, and mercifully, it works out. I can claw myself a bit back into this game. Now the Barraskewda's going to come in, and I think the reason that you don't go Barraskewda before that is because you don't know if I'm Scarf or Specs, and if I'm Scarf, then I would have just killed a Barraskewda. But by sacking the Swampert, you know that I have to be Specs to have the power to kill it, so Barraskewda is very, very free. So I just go Pex, and at this point, they nail me with a Psychic Fangs, doing a shit ton, which, ow. But what I'm starting to notice is that if I'm able to start dealing with the Zapdos, this Pex becomes really annoying to break. I don't really threaten very much back, but I can live a hit off the Zapdos because I'm Spadef, and I can knock it off. I can annoy it. Barraskewda, it still has to Psychic Fangs into me to be able to really properly do damage. But obviously I'm forced out now, so I just go Landorus, my thinking being that I'm a Landorus against a Rain team. I'm not going to achieve a great deal, so I may as well just get mileage out of it while I can. So I go Landorus, and at this point, I'm expecting Pelipper. So I sub, hoping that I can just waste some turns of Rain. But they go hard Urshifu, which can just Surging Strike straight through all of that, so they get me there, but I didn't want to just ineffectually Earthquake into, most likely, a Pelipper. In retrospect, maybe I could have done, because the Pelipper would have been down to half, I could smack it down, vibes would be had, and if they want to go Ferrothorn, I get a big hit. Maybe I should have just Earthquaked, but point is, I don't, and it works out for trade, so that's cool for them. I just go Corviknight at this point, thinking, okay, well, I'm not going to get you healed back up, most likely, and even if I do, I just let in the very scary Zapdos. So I can just get some last Rocky Helmet use, and it does take 2 Surging Strikes to kill me, which is cool, because I get 2 hits. And the Toxapex was too weak to switch into 2 hits, but now I can bring it in, and as they go Ferrothorn, I believe I'm just forced to recover up. So I do that, and at the very least, I have a healthy Pex. I'm still thinking at this point, I'm on the back foot, I need to play aggressive. I'm also thinking that you probably don't want to knock off something that's already lost its item. So I feel reasonably confident you either want to Leech Seed or set up a Spike, especially when my Defogger being dead. So I go Blacephalon, and then after that, I call that the Pelipper to absorb a Flamethrower is so obvious that you won't want to do it. So I just, rather than Shadow Balling to nail something, I just go straight for Flamethrower and cook the Ferrothorn. So that's cool. I get my special attack boost, but Barraskewda is going to come straight in to shit on me. And shit on me it does, as it just flip turns straight out very freely, getting in the Zapdos. And at this point, my Clefable is very dangerously low, so I end up just sacking the Blacephalon. In retrospect, I think Landorus might have been a better sack, because Landorus does nothing, but Blacephalon could at least come in on Pelipper and get a kill. But, oh well, I sacked the Blacephalon, that happened, as they just take the opportunity to get Pelipper in and get the rain up. But I'm going to just go Pex here, and you have to U-turn out. They go into Zapdos, and that's going to let me knock off its heavy-duty boots, which is really, really nice, because it's going to hugely open up Katana, in that Katana is going to kill the remaining 3 things with Leaf Blades. So Zapdos has to get in range, and it taking 25 whenever it comes in is just the best way to do that by miles. Although, at the same time, I see why you wouldn't want to just go Urshifu or Barraskewda, because they're not immediately threatening it as badly. I'll be living a Psychic Fang once I've knocked it off. Urshifu can't touch me. Pelipper is going to just lose its Damp Rock. I get why you'd go Zapdos, but in going Zapdos, Katana is vibing now. So at this point, I'm going to just sack the Landorus now, because the Clefable is too weak to take 2. That goes down to Hurricane, and now they're going to just Hurricane me again, as I soft-bowled up. And the reason that you just keep hurricaning into me is because you could confuse me, and then I hit myself, and then I'm fucked. And it's just kind of a pretty no drawback play, in the worst case, whatever, I soft-bowled up, I heal slightly. And also you don't really want to switch anything else into Moonblast, so staying in just makes a lot of sense. And in that case, they're rewarded for it, as they get the confusion. And now if I hit myself, it's very rough. So I have to just soft-boil back up here, and they can go Urshifu knowing that, but I fucking hit myself. And that was a bit rough, because that means that next time the Zapdos comes in, there is nothing I can do. I have to just sack somebody. So Urshifu's in, and it's very scary, and I just let the Clefable die, because there is nothing that is going to let it heal up. But this does at least let Katana in, and I kind of get 2 kills here, because firstly, something has to die, and then after that, to revenge kill me, they have to go Pelipper to reset the rain, which is going to give me another kill, and then go Barraskewda to outspeed me with the Swift Swim. So that's pretty nice. So down goes Urshifu, which is cool. Rain stops, Pelipper comes back in, and then after that, they're going to double Zapdos just to keep the Pelipper intact, to get Rain again if they need to, and also, probably more importantly actually, to potentially get Static on me. And I mean, my only play is Leaf Blades, so I have to just risk the Static, and I very sadly do get Staticked. And now Barraskewda is going to come back in. And at this point, you can either close combat and blow me up, or you can Psychic Fangs and catch my Pex on the switch. And so it's a very difficult decision to make. And I end up deciding that I think that you probably should just close combat into me because you insta-lose if you don't. Whereas if I go Pex and catch the close combat, then there's still vaguely some level of chance, I believe. So I go Pex, I take a bunch of shit, hazards, close combat, all that kind of jazz. They go Pelipper, and I just scold her. And the reason for that, I could have recovered up, but the reason I scold is because I can't knock off, because if I knock off and I take the Barrascuda's Choice Band, then it can switch between close combat and Psychic Fangs, and then I'm fucked. And I didn't want to recover, because I was just thinking that if Pelipper wants to roost its way up, then it can potentially Hurricane Hacks me down, and even if I beat it long term, I'm still wasting a shit ton of recovers. So I felt like I have to just attack into it. So I do that, and now I'm very low as the Barrascuda comes back in. And at this point, I mean, obviously I need to not knock it off. I'm just kind of thinking, okay, I can just recover a whole bunch, because if you don't kill me, because you should only be able to kill me still with Psychic Fangs, and then I just win with Katana. I'm thinking, if you don't kill me, then I just recover all the way up, get rid of your rain, and win the game. Unfortunately, as they liquidate, they get a defense drop, and so my recovering up is in vain, and I die. And so at this point, I'm able to go back into Katana, and I do take a hit. So it's entirely just, am I going to be able to survive? To break through the paralysis, that's what I mean. And they liquidate, do a shit ton, get another defense drop, and I thankfully do break through. So another really close game. Both of them effectively coming down to more or less 50-50s in the end. I felt as if in that one, I was able to kind of wrest it back a bit from being on the back foot. So I was very happy to be able to take it, as from the point where they U-turned on the Blacephalon, I was beginning to just think, fuck, this shit isn't my day, is it? But I'm able to close out that one, bring it to 1-1, and bring it to a final game. So this is that final game. And for matchups this time, I've got Regieleki Future Sight, and they've got a Ferrothorn and a Nidoking. But equally, Nidoking, it isn't recovering. It's very susceptible to Future Sight. I'm kind of just thinking in this game, okay, my game plan is going to be if I can get Future Sight teleports off, weaken the Ferrothorn enough, then I can start forcing progress. I also really like Weavile this game, in that after a Swords Dance, it threatens the fuck out of everyone, apart from Tapu Fini, which I can get my rocks, I can get my spikes, I can threaten that. I should be in with a decent shot, but then equally, on my side, I do not switch into Nidoking in the slightest, and Zapdos is also very scary for me. So it just kind of evens out, I would say. And they lead Tapu Fini as I lead Slowbro. And the reason for Slowbro lead is just thinking, A, if I'm able to Future Sight immediately, incredible. And B, I can just teleport out on most of the things that I don't like. So that's fine. But as they go into Tapu Fini, I don't really know how. Like, I didn't make any deductions based off of team structure, as such as I just had this feeling that it was Choice Scarf. I can't justify that, but I just thought it was, and I thought, I can't let you trick this, because then Zapdos is gonna just fuck me. What's also worth mentioning is that this is a Future Sight Body Press Slack Off Teleport Slowbro, so it already can't really touch Zapdos, so I have to be even more careful around that. So I start thinking, okay, what can I let you trick, assuming you trick? And I end up deciding that Ferrothorn is probably the play, which is because I really want to keep the Heatran's Air Balloon because I'm so weak to Nidoking. So I don't really want to risk you attacking into that. And if you do anything else, then I'm a Heatran in on a Tapu Fini, I don't really threaten you. That's just a bit silly. Whereas with Ferrothorn, it will take any attack it wants to go for, and I don't feel it's as necessary to win the game, in that it's only really Tapu Fini that Ferrothorn is going to shut down. So with that in mind, I go Ferrothorn, and I get tricked. They go out straight into Heatran, as I just spike, because I was thinking I could Power Whip, I could Body Press, but there's just so many different things you could go into that's just a crapshoot, and Spike is guaranteed value, whatever you want to do. They go there, Heatran. I'm able to go into mine, because with an Air Balloon, you probably cannot touch me, unless you're Heavy Slam or something weird. I'm then going to just get my rocks, as they go Tornadus. And I was thinking at this point that, okay, that probably just wants to defog, but I think that I maybe could have deduced Assault Vest from the fact that it would be a bit weird to get your own rocks up, then immediately defog. And also that you're going straight in on a Heatran that it would be very reasonable for it to just Magma Storm. So maybe I could have put 2 and 2 together here, but I don't. And I just go Slowbro, hoping to teleport out after a knockoff or U-turn or something. But it Hurricanes and it crits, so that kind of cuts short that idea, and I have to just go Spadef Lando. Dodging a Hurricane, which is nice. And then take another one and U-turn out. If I was expecting it to stay in, probably would have Toxic, but I didn't really want to just let in Ferrothorn or Tapu Fini, or even a very brave Nidoking, but you probably don't want to do that. So I get the U-turn off, and I can just go Weavile. And as they go Ferrothorn, I believe I just go straight for the knockoff. And this is really nice, because that is one of the main things that's standing in the way of Regieleki. And with Ferrothorn weakened, Future Sight plus Regieleki is getting even more potent, as I would hope that soon you start having to just let something go, because Nidoking can't come in because it'll get Future Sighted, and everything else is going to get fried by Regieleki. So that's very cool. I'm feeling optimistic at this point. I go Slowbro again, just thinking, okay, you probably want to Spike or Body Press. That lets me teleport out. That's cool. But then I thought, to some extent, I count Power Whip, and it's a roll, and I thought, okay, let's not be stupid. Let's not throw out Slowbro for literally no reason. So Ferrothorn comes in, but they just Spike again, which was a good play. And I end up just Body Pressing, thinking, okay, well, you probably want another Spike. I really want to get Ferrothorn weakened. I'm going to be in a great position if I do. But they just go Tornadus, which was a much better play. And now that they take rocks, I realise, oh right, Assault Vest, okay. But I ended up deciding you probably don't want to just Hurricane ineffectually into me again. So I just decide, okay, let's just let you U-turn. But the problem is that because I'm Scarfed, I can't really do very much with that, as they go into Zapdos and reveal Leftover Zapdos, which is really scary, in that already I don't switch into Zapdos. I have to just get right if they're going to Brave Bird or Close Combat every time, assuming that it's your usual Choice Band Zapdos. With Bulk Up Zapdos, they're able to just pick the appropriate one every time. And that's really scary, because Slowbro is already weakened, and I also don't even have Scald. I have to just bluff that I do. And the only faster things I can go into, Regieleki and Weavile, to try and immediately threaten and force it out, both of them just die. So Bulk Up Zapdos ends up being a really good pick for them, as I just go Slowbro, which is a pretty optimistic, I hope you Close Combat, really. All I can really say. But after the Bulk Up and all the spikes, I'm now in Brave Bird range. I die. That's pretty rough. I go Regieleki here, and at this point, I'm kind of going, okay, I am hugely on the back foot here. This is really, really dire. The only answer to Zapdos that I have, I just sacked. So next time you get Zapdos in, you can just dismantle me even further. I also thought, when you just go Nidoking on the obvious on the obvious Volt Switch, then I probably have to just sack somebody else, and then I'm even more fucked. So I end up thinking, okay, I'm gonna spin here, just because I have to, because I'm so on the back foot already. But they just leave in the Zapdos and kill me. So that's pretty rough. They explained afterwards that they thought that just at that point you don't need Zapdos to win, so why risk letting me clear out all the hazards for free? I was pretty much certain they were going to switch, but I mean, clearly it worked out for them, so fair enough. And all I can really do now is go into Weavile to try and revenge. And things are looking pretty dire at this point. And I'm thinking that there is still a smidgen of a chance of a way for me to win this game. And what that is that if I can Swords Dance with Weavile, then I need to weaken the Tapu Fini and then get a Swords Dance up with Weavile, then I can win. But it's going to be difficult to get the Tapu Fini sufficiently weakened because I don't really have many things that force it in other than Weavile, which is a bit counterproductive because, like, once it's in, I can't Swords Dance. That was not a well-worded sentence. It's past the hour mark. My brain is very fried, forgive me. It'd be really hard, but there's that slight smidgen of a chance, except I just missed the triple axle, so now there is no chance. I get blown up by the Brave Bird, and at that point, I just forfeit because there's nothing I can do, and I get 6-0'd, and it's very sad. So, GG, and well done to Trade, and best of luck to them in the future rounds. They seem like a very nice guy. And we had a bit of a chat after the game, in which they showed me that, turns out, the Tornadus that they had, I was thinking, okay, maybe I can Swords Dance up on that Tornadus with the Weavile, in that they usually like to carry something like Knockoff, U-Turn, Heat Wave, Hurricane. I live all of those hits with Weavile. I can get a Swords Dance. It's not much, but it's something. Turns out they were carrying Superpower, so I would have at some point tried to Swords Dance on the Tornadus and got blown the fuck up. Couldn't even just hope for a Focus Blast miss because it's Superpower. So realistically, in that game, I was gonna just get torn apart by the Zapdos immediately. I would have needed to maneuver myself to be future sighting and teleporting a lot quicker and earlier than I did, but I didn't. I get absolutely dismantled. I crash out in round 5. If you've been here for the entire hour listening to me incoherently ramble, then thank you so much for doing that. Goodbye.